You click on technology assignments on the, I said right-hand side, I meant left-hand side. It brings you eventually to a page, there's a pause for dramatic effect apparently, that has the technology assignment expectation page, along with a rubric. And if you read through the rubric, you'll see that it's very, very forgiving. I tend to do that, and the more you see, the results of my grading, the more you're going to come to realize that I'm very forgiving when it comes to assessment scores, as long as there was an honest effort made. All right. So you'll see problem solving, perseverance, and discussion. Actively develops and suggests solutions to problems. That's the discussion board, right? Under recommendation and explanation, chose efficient strategies for solving the problem. It's so vague that I almost have to give you full credit for that. Graphs, diagrams, charts clearly show the data gathered and are enhanced by the sophistication of the layout. Very vague again, like what data? Right? Data can mean so many different things. And so basically, I'm allowing for any circumstance in which you're putting together resources to create a product. All right, so it's almost like I have to give you full credit on this. And so that's a good thing. So you can kind of sort of, if you're going through the process, you can kind of sort of relax into it, and maybe, just maybe, actually enjoy the process. You never know. All right, so here's our first technology assignment. It should be visible on your end. If it's not, let me know and I'll work to fix that. Yeah, I'm not in love with the change in font here. So I got a font change from this, the blurb at the top to the to do at the bottom, and also like the grade here in to do item number 2 spilling over to the second line. I call those typos. So so yeah, submit those for some bonus credit. So it's going to be due in 2 weeks. So obviously it's not a term project. It's not something that should take you forever to complete. It should go pretty quickly once you get the hang of it. All right. It's going to be a share. There it is. It's going to be a share file through Desmos. Right. So so I'll explain what that looks like in a little bit. All right. So the criteria, you see the rubric, we already talked about that. All right. Technology, very vague stuff, but it's basically saying we're applying what we've learned in a technological sense. Now, this is math for elementary teachers. So we have that twofold responsibility of not only making sure that we apply our content knowledge for our own benefit, to develop a firmer understanding of the content, but also we want to develop resources so that when we go and actually teach this stuff for real, we have stuff that we can build off of. Right? So I'm kind of, you probably see through it all, like my methodology, but I'll say it anyway. I'm trying to trick you into lesson planning and activity planning for the future. So my thought process is, if everybody creates a Desmos activity, right, whatever that looks like, everybody creates a Desmos activity, and then you share the links with one another, that's going to be to the benefit of everyone. So when you're in the classroom and you're like, oh man, I could really use an activity related to pick a topic, it's going to be there because your classmates went through the trouble, just like you'll go through the trouble of creating those resources. And I can tell you that moving forward, depending on where, like you get a full-time job in an elementary school, public elementary school, it is so hit or miss as to whether or not your colleagues are going to want to help you, right? Some of them are just like, they keep their head down and mind their own business. They're just, I got 10 days to retirement, that kind of thing. And then there are some that'll just help you with every step of the way, like they'll open the car door for you, so, and different people are going to have different experiences. And so any resources that you have available to you before you start the job, that's just going to make your life a lot easier, right? So your to-do list is to create a Desmos account if you don't already have one, right? So previously it was like, you may want to look into this. Maybe you'll find value in the Desmos account. If you want, make the account, Now it's okay, yeah, enough of that. We got to make accounts. Everybody's got to have an account, right? Work through this Desmos activity in order to get a sense of what the student experience is like, right? So I'm going to count it as a separate 5-point quiz grade for you, right? So I always kind of look at it like any opportunity, especially in this class, well, only in this class, any opportunity where you can build your grade based off of completing elementary school level math. I mean, those are free points, You think back to the skills assessment, the only questions that people, I think, found to be challenging even slightly were the ones that, not the ones that asked you to do it, the ones that asked you to explain how you would tell somebody else how to do it, right? Those are the ones that make this, if there's any part of this course that's challenging, those are the things. That's the aspect, right? You're going to choose one of these topics, right? So there's going to be overlap. I got 15 people in the Zoom right now, plus me, for a total of 16. I got a total of 6 topics, right? So there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to want to do cardinal ordinal. There are going to be a bunch of people that are going to want to do simplifying fractions. Maybe one of the topics will go unused. Maybe nobody wants to do percents in context. It's all part of the fun, I suppose. The idea is that you would kind of expand beyond your comfort zone, right? So when you completed the activity for the first unit, there's 2 ways you can look at this. This technology assignment could be an extension of that, where let's say, for example, you did cardinal and ordinal numbers. Now you'll say, oh, you know what? This is a great opportunity to see if I can get technology involved in that. All right, so I did cardinal ordinal numbers, and I did it with, I've been watching the videos, I promise folks, I'm behind on the grading, but I've been watching the videos, and there was some that actually, I present this image of being this like big tough dude, but I melted like butter when I saw some of them. Like I started getting misty eyed. That like some of them had just such a touching cuteness about them that it was like this. It's exactly what I had in mind, So there was one there where that it involved the idea of just counting, cardinal numbers, and just going from the idea of counting up in groups and then corresponding that with numbers on that were handwritten on a card, and that's a, I'll call it a, for lack of a better term, it's a grassroots approach. It's a great approach, hands-on. The kids, they gravitate towards that. They like physical activities. They like it when it's a game. Who wouldn't? I'll tell you right now, even as adults, we like it when the learning is a game, except when it's a big unit test or a final exam or something like that. Then there's no room for fun. It's like, listen, why are you trying to make this into a game? My entire life is on the line here. That's a different story. But like when the learning involves having fun, it's so powerful, right? So that individual might consider extending it to technology and saying, okay, well, let's see if I got what it takes. Maybe I can get some tech involved in here. And now I'm not just limited to being in the classroom with a student. I honestly think nothing would substitute, based on the video that I'm referencing, I don't think anything would be an adequate substitute for that personal interaction, that caring interaction between teacher and student. But, like if you're in pandemic learning and you physically can't be in a room with somebody, technology is going to be a good resource for you. All right. So just a thought. But then maybe that person is like, listen, I feel like I got it. I got cardinal and ordinal numbers. I know what to do with that. Let me push it a little bit and see if I can extend it to integers on a number line, for example. Let me see if I can apply the technology to that. Just kind of broaden the horizon a little bit. So once you select the topic, and bear in mind, some of them are a little bit easier to perform than others, and I'll walk you through some strategies in a little bit. You may decide down the line, bit off more than I could chew. I really want to do percents in context, but I just can't figure out the tech. But that's when we have a conversation. You say, hey, is it all right if I switch over to simplifying fractions? Because I think I can handle that one. I thought I could handle percents in context, but it's not working out that way. Right? That's totally fine. The whole idea, again, is for us to learn through the process and also have a bank of activities that we could all share, right? So we got to kind of look at us, we're our own faculty right now. And so any kind of resources that we put together are for all of us to keep and to share and to modify, right? The fourth thing that you're going to do is to post in a discussion board. Very simple. I'm not looking for Shakespeare here. What topic will you be working on and why? Yeah, it could be something as simple as cardinal and ordinal numbers, because that's what I did the last activity on, and I want to see how that translates to technology. Comparing decimals and fractions, because I just did an activity on cardinal and ordinal numbers, and I want to do something different, right? Something simple, right? You just want to kind of put it out there. The reason why I want you to do that, it has nothing to do with like claiming topics or anything like that. I just want people to say, you go through the discussion board and you're like, oh, like everybody else is doing comparing fractions with unlike denominators. So maybe I'll do something different. I was going to do that, but there's like 10 other people doing that. Maybe I'll try something different, just to kind of mix it up. There's pros and cons either way, because if every single one of you did the same topic, then there's a compare and contrast that can happen. When I look at all your work, I can compare them and say, oh, this one had this one had that. They're similar, but they're different. I'm not looking at like, did somebody copy from somebody else? That stuff kind of works itself out. I'm looking more at like, all right, what made this activity great and what made this activity great? Consider incorporating some of this stuff into your activity, and hey, you incorporate some of this stuff in your activity. That goes back to this little blurb here. However, this is not a group submission, but it's strongly recommended that you seek to cooperate with others by actively participating. There's nothing wrong with quote unquote stealing somebody else's ideas. Hey, that was a great idea. You mind if I steal that? Teachers say that all the time, right? Let me just pause real quick. So then you create your Desmos activity. So you decided on the topic, you justified it in some simple way. Now you're going to construct it, all right? That's obviously the big challenge, right? And that's where you're going to need the help, all right? Once you've created your own Desmos activity, then you're going to work through the completed activities of at least 2 of your classmates. Now, these activities, I'll show you what one looks like in a minute. So that's an important piece. These activities are not meant to be like 40-minute assessments that take, like it's not supposed to take forever, right? They're supposed to give a hands-on way of experiencing the content, but it shouldn't take too long. All right. So when I say to complete the activities for at least 2 of your classmates and offer feedback in the discussion, at least 2, okay, at least 2 could mean 10, because in theory, you should be able to work through each of your classmates' activities fairly quickly. I'm only going to require 2 because I know we all have lives, and there's only so much I would expect you to do, but the more you do, the more of a help you're going to be. So to that end, and I'll make a note of this somewhere in the grade book, I will be offering bonus credit for any any activities that you work through beyond the minimum of 2. All right, so we have, I believe it's supposed to be 17 students enrolled in this class. Maybe it's 15, I'm not sure. I mean, there's 15 here now, so that's what I'll go with. So in theory, you could work through up to 14 activities other than your own. Yeah, I'll make it worth your while if you take the time to do that, right? Because that's data, that's information for your classmates, or in this context, your colleagues. All right. So I'll make sure that you get some bonus credit for that. All right. And that'll be detailed on Blackboard, how that, what the point distribution will be. I mean, I know you'd love it if I gave you 1 point for each one you went through, but that's great inflation. I can't do that. But yeah, I'll have a sliding scale, so you'll see what I'm talking about. All right. You offer the feedback in the discussion, which brings us to number 7, graciously accept any constructive criticism. That's reliant on the fact that the people who did the criticisms or the critiques are doing it also graciously. They're not being jerks about it, right? So, like if you're offering feedback, you're offering feedback. Positive feedback, constructive feedback, anything that the person could benefit from. You don't want to go in and say, your activity didn't make any sense. It makes no sense. Oh yeah? Oh, that's awfully nice of you. I tend to regulate that sort of thing in terms of grades. So if anybody wants to try their luck in that regard, you're not going to like the outcome. It's not going to happen. There's no need for threats here, because that people are going to be nice about it. Because you know what? You're going to offer constructive criticism, and you're going to do it in such a nice way because they're going to be looking at your work, and you don't want people tearing apart your stuff. So, and then submit the link here in this assignment with your completed, submit the link of your completed Desmos activity by the deadline. So there's another typo for somebody, right? I popped in a couple of useful resources. The first one is how to use the activity builder. It's a 20-minute video, so I don't want to mandate these resources. I'm going to walk you through it a little bit in a few minutes. The second link is actually probably something that you'll find more value in, because that's starter screens, right? If you think about like YouTube channels, YouTube videos, like you have my YouTube videos, which are like, hey everybody, we're gonna do math now, and then you have like new rock stars, or Screen Rant, or I like Paigey, who does the DC TV show stuff. And they all have like awesome intros with like rock music and like graphics and animations and stuff like that. And you're like, whoa, that's next level. I'm not promising that, but starter screens are a nice way to kind of, add a little bit of professional look to your Desmos activity. And they also look cool, right? So it's kind of like if you were to create a PowerPoint and just do it with a blank white screen. Yeah, you get the job done. I'm sure you get full credit on whatever assignment you're doing. But then if you get one of the templates that has nice backgrounds and animations involved in it, you're just adding a little pizzazz to it. That's really what I'm talking about here. All right. So let me take you through a Desmos activity. I have one that's linked here. This is the one you're going to do, so I obviously want to do something a little bit different, right? But if you click on this one, you see it asks you to put your name in there, right? Definitely make sure you do that so I can give you credit, and then select go, and it'll take you to the Math Elem, the Desmos challenge. I'm sorry, the Decimal Challenge. Right? You go there, you click on it, and it populates you into the activity, and it asks you to do some things. Right? So take a look at that one at some point. I'm not going to put a deadline on that one, except to say have it done by the deadline for the tech assignment overall. All right. So if it's one of those things you had a brain cramp and and the night that it's due, you did everything else. You're like, oh crap, I forgot to do that intro Desmos. Then go ahead and do that. You know, I don't need it like tomorrow or anything like that. It's to your benefit to do it though, so you get a sense of what the student experience is. All right, let me pause for a second here. All right, so the question was, when are the discussions due? I'm gonna leave them open because what I want is the option for students to be able to refine their posts. Like if you decide down the line, you know, in a couple of days that you're going to change your topic and stuff like that, then I want you to have that ability. So I'm not going to put a deadline on it again, except to say it'll be due when the whole assignment is due. All right. But part of the discussion rubric involves not waiting until the last minute to blast the discussion board with like 10 posts. Right. You're not going to get full credit if you do that. So just kind of get an intro post and then just check back every couple of days and then post, you know, follow-ups, answer questions, ask questions, things like that. Right. So basically you got, it's a 2-week ongoing experience. All right. But, you know, I'll take you through a little bit of this one. Anyway, this is the one that's in the tech assignment. See, it says drag any 4 numbers into the empty boxes below. So, okay, I'll do that. Grab it by the dot. All right. Now, if you're like me, which is really, you know, I feel sorry for you if you are. If you're like me, then you're probably looking at this and saying, all right, it's all over. I don't know how the hell to do that. How am I supposed to make that? That's why we're doing this. That's why we're here. All right. We're learning how to do this. All right. So I'd hit next. And now you see it created decimal values from the numbers I selected. Right, so now we're just finding the sum. Right, so it's really, what is it beyond just adding 2 decimal values? I added a little pizzazz to it. It jazzed it up a little bit, you know. So I would hit the number, you know, like in this case, it turns out it's an even 16, and then I'd hit submit, and it says nice work. Go to the next screen, you know, and then you go through it that way. And so. And then you just continue to follow the process. All right. So I don't want to rob you of that experience. So I'll stop this one and then I'll move on to another one. I also want to show you how you go about logging in and all that good stuff. All right. Let me pause the video, resume recording. Okay. So let me X this one out. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to log out. All right, so I have this Desmos activity, but and I'll take you through it in a second, but I want to show you not how to necessarily complete it, but some of the underlying features that exist within that Desmos activity. All right, but before you do that, you're definitely going to want to know how to create an account. Fortunately, this isn't like Blackboard where everything is unnecessarily complicated. This one's a little bit more straightforward. It's create an account. All right, now you create an account. You want to sign in with Google, you want to create an account with Google, you go ahead and do that. But we want to select create an account. You put in your name. I'll just I'll make another account just so we have it, or I have it. All right. And then just made up a password. I'll never remember that, so I'll be hitting forgot my password forthwith. All right, so I created a new account. It was as simple as that. All right. If you've never used the Desmos process before, you'll find that it's pretty seamless. All right. So I just created one I just created a college account. Right. It's very important that you go to teacher.desmos.com. All right. Otherwise, you won't be able to edit the activities. All right. If you go to justdesmos.com, you get the graphing calculator, which is a wonderful resource, but it's not necessarily going to make it a teacher account. All right, you're all making teacher accounts. Right, so very important. Right, so I'm going to go into this make it balance activity. Now you see over here we have different options. You have this little book jammy here. I can click on that, which gives you a printable teacher guide. Right, so if you want that, I mean, if you have students, let's say, who get accommodations like disability services accommodations, or they have an IEP, then one of their accommodations could be that they're provided notes. You know, they have access to the class notes. So this is a good resource if you have those kind of students where maybe they need that extra extra document. All right. Also, you know, there's sometimes you want to have the old answer key on hand just in case there's questions you don't want to get caught off guard. So that's what that would be for. All right. You have the little plus here, which is allowing you to add to a collection. Right. I don't have a collection because I just created this account. So what I would do is I'd create a new account. I'm sorry, a new collection, and I call it let's call it elementary math. All right. I can make it a private or a public or a private, and then give it a description. You know, that description could be something as simple as these activities are for student engagement in the elementary classroom. You know, I'll tell you right now, for a description, when it comes to collections on Desmos, it's really more like we don't really need it as teachers. We only create the description for Big Brother, you know, the administrative oversight. So the collection description is for like, okay, you got to send this off to an administrator. They're like, hey, you have any activities for a third grade math class? You put a description in there so that they know what the heck you're talking about. But for our purposes, we wouldn't need it. So I would just hit create a new collection. And now I have something to tag anytime I've come across an activity in Desmos that I think is really freaking awesome. I'm like, here's a good one. Let me tag that into my collection and save it so that when I go into my collections, it's going to show up as part of that, as part of that collection. Right? The benefit of this, when you're creating a Desmos activity, the benefit of having this option is so that when you come across an activity that, even though it's not something that you yourself would use in your class, maybe it's got some characteristics that you look at and say, you know what, if I change this, that, and that, I can take this from being a high school problem and make it into an elementary problem. I just have to delete a couple of slides and now I have a nice elementary math activity, right? If you go into search for an activity, you just throw in the topic and it'll bring up many options. But the thing is, Desmos is kind of like, it's not, there's nothing wrong with Desmos. What's wrong is the people who use Desmos. The people who use Desmos are more interested in the really upper level math, you know, like we're really smart, like with high intensity mathematics, you know. Yeah, but sometimes you need an activity to get the foundational stuff across, right? So, like for example, adding. Start typing and adding, and you see that there's a few different options here. So let's say adding integers. All right. The ones that are by Desmos, because it'll always tell you the author underneath the title. The ones that are by Desmos, you could expect them to be higher quality because that's, you know, it's the creator of the whole website. Those are the folks who made the activity. So they're more cognizant, familiar with the different attributes of the software. So, you know, like if I make one, it's going to be, you know, like a little bit more basic. Right? These are going to be a little bit more jazzed up. All right. But you look at it and you scroll down and take a look at the screens that are available and you can see, you know, what's going on. You get a quick glance of what the activity is all about. And if you work through it and you say, you know what, I like it. I don't like it enough to use it as is. I like it enough to hang on to it and maybe modify it later. that's when you hit that little plus jammy there and say, let me add it to my elementary math. I'll come back to it later when I'm looking at my collections. If it's something that you really, really like, if you think that it's ready to rock and roll, like no adjustments need to be made, then what you can do is you can still add it to your collection, but you can assign it, right? If you assign the activity, there's two ways to do it. One is you populate an entire class into Desmos. I don't really like that unless you're using Desmos for many, many activities throughout the course of a school year. If you're using it as a one-off, you don't necessarily want to have all of your students enrolled in a course, online, Desmos course, and to only do one activity. So in that regard, what you would do is you would just simply say, with the drop down, single session code, right? And so what you have here is a code that'll expire after a certain period of time. So this one will go as far as April of next year. It keeps track of when I assigned it. There's no students in there because I haven't invited anyone. There's a dashboard that comes up when I click on that, obviously. But when I hit the three dots here, I can bring up a student link. All right, that's how I got the link to give to you in the technology assignment. When I select that, this tells the students where to go. If they copy this link, it'll bring them right to the activity. And then they could get rocking and rolling on it, you know? So if you have something that's ready to go, that's gonna be your way to go. So you'll need to know that one way or the other, because after you've created your Desmos activity, you're gonna post a link into the discussion board. That's the link that you're gonna post in, right? So you're gonna post in, you're gonna go to assign, you're gonna select single session code, and then the three dots, you go to student link, and then copy this bad boy right into Blackboard, right, into a discussion, all right? I'll click on View Dashboard so you see what that's all about. It brings up the class code again. But you see below that, it gives you the slides, gives you an option for snapshots of all the student work, right? You can get a sense of what they're doing in real time. A summary of their work. If the students were working here, it would tell me how they're progressing through each of the slides, right? Not much to see if people haven't worked on the assignment yet, right? But what I can do, you click on this little D here to go back where you started. I can show you a little, well, actually, I'll do that later. I just realized that it's going to have student names in it, and so that's probably not a good idea. I'll make up a fictitious class, and I'll show you what the display looks like. It's pretty straightforward. All right. So as far as this make it balance activity is concerned, right? So again, it's in my collections. I have it saved here because I looked at it. I said, I like this one. Click on it. What I want to do is I want to go through student preview and start, as a teacher, I want to evaluate whether or not this is going to fit with my curriculum, right? Is this going to coincide with what I'm trying to do, right? And go into it with an open mind, right? So you could look at this and say, they're trying to determine how to balance values, but maybe you can manipulate it or change it so that you can talk about cardinal numbers, grouping, things like that, right? So let me X that out. Here, it looks like it's more like a number line kind of thing, but I'm basically getting across the idea that there's something going on with this triangle where if I move it around, right, it's gonna create a balance. So then I would click check my work, and it's like it's a seesaw, right? So then I would hit try it again, you know. So I'd reset it, move my balance. Oh, you got to be careful, you know, because it's the dot. You click on the dot to make things go. So check my work. No, not quite. Reset. Check my work. Ooh, not too bad. And then there's the balance, all right? So you can look at this and say, okay, this is more science, but maybe you just like the bears. All right. So I'm going to, maybe I'll steal the bears and work on grouping cardinal numbers. All right. So I'm going to hold that thought. All right. So I go to next, see what the next one's all about. All right. Place 2 bears on the balance to make it work. All right. So I got this guy here. All right. All right. So they gave me 2 bears. All right. Eh, it's not, again, it's not even about the balancing. So we'll come back to that in a minute. Yeah, same deal. It's a follow-up question. So you're kind of deciding, okay, this one's got 3 bears. Right? You can move the triangle thing again. Okay, it's looking like maybe I don't need the triangle thing. All right. And we got all this stuff. This is a big thing. They like asking this. This became like the new way of asking students to draw conclusions in the elementary level. What do you notice and what do you wonder? It's it's corny, it's cheesy. I guess it gets the job done, but what they're trying to do is use the language in ways that kids can understand. So, it's you're starting the sentence for them rather than saying, like the question here, it says, what do you notice? What do you wonder? I noticed that. I wonder if. So you might want to consider having questions like these in your activities, if only so that you're ready to rock and roll when you go on an interview or something like that, right? So next, so I like that slide because that's applicable. This one's got 5 bears, all right? So, all right, so hold that thought. I don't need this one. We got more bear. We got a lot of bears here. All right. So, oh, how many bears are here? 4 bears. Okay. We got a ton of bears here. It looks like it's more of a kind of like a bar chart kind of thing going on. I don't know if I need that in an elementary level, but it could be all right. Got 8 bears, and then I get 10 bears. Okay, so that could be fun, right? So I'm just counting bears now. What I want to do is I want to get in here and I want to start modifying it, right? So what I'll do is I'll copy it and edit, right? So now we start tearing this bad boy apart, right? And you say, okay, I don't need this, I need this. I don't want this, I want this, right? So if I decide that what I want to do is have my students learn how to count, then that becomes the type of activity that I'd be working on. So counting, all right? You could even call it counting, fun with counting bears or something, I don't know. I'll get rid of this activity description, you come back to that later, right? So save that, all right? So I look at the first one and I say, well, I didn't really need the balance beam. These bears are cute, but I don't really need that either. All right. This one, this one was a good one because it allowed me to have multiple bears. All right. In this case, there were 2 bears that I had here, and when you click on it, you can see that there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes that maybe you don't know or understand, but if you can just kind of work your way through it and say, okay, I see something going on here that I like. Let me see if I can tweak it. Then that could be a good thing. So let me cancel this. I'm going to hang on to this one. So I'm going to get rid of this one. This one has got 5 bears, I think. This one I don't need. This one was the sketching, explaining strategy about balancing the point of, like, I'm just talking about counting, so I don't need them to explain any of that. And you know what? Depending on the age group you're going with, they may not even know how to write, or at least write in the way that you want them to. So this is still a good one. I don't need this one. Oh, what do you notice? What do you wonder? I'm going to hang on to that. All right. 5 bears. This one I'm going to get rid of. Fixing it. Hang on to this. This one I thought maybe was a little too advanced. You know where to find the original one, so I could always come back to that. 8 bears, that's good. All right. So and we got the free play here. We could retitle, we could do all sorts of things. Now, 2 bears. All right. So we start thinking about what we could do with this, right? I can edit the graph and get all this stuff out of here, or I could just kind of work around it. What I could do is I could say, all right, so what I want to do is create, I'll keep it simple, 2 groups of bears. How many bears are in each group? All right, just keeping it simple. All right, I could have that check my work business, but I don't even think I really need that. Right, so I would just leave it at this and then go from there. But I do want them to have the ability to put an answer in. Right, so I go to the side here and I look at my different options. And there's the teacher tip tool. You can use that if you want. But I go up on the side here and I see I have an option to put notes in. That's what this is. That's what this unlabeled note is. That's where that came from. I could have a mathematical input. I don't think I need that. I could have multiple choice. If you want to have a multiple choice question, you could do that. All right. Maybe you mix it up. Maybe one of them you do multiple choice and another one you do just a regular text input. Right. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to pop in a text input. Right. Now, depending on whether or not this is a graded assignment, if this is an activity that you're expecting the students to collaborate with, then you would check show students their classmates' responses, because then they could look at it and say, oh, that's what Timmy got. I got this. How did he get that? Oh, that's okay. I see my mistake. So we could have that option there. All right. So what I'll do here is I'll just do a quick publish so I could show you what it looks like. All right. So I'll publish it. But I made some changes. I tore it apart and I got some new things going on. All right. It's still got that little edited with love by Ted Can. There was nothing loving about it. I deleted. I slashed it apart. All right. So I go back into student preview and I take a look and I say, okay. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I just had to do a quick refresh. And then it's not letting me do it. That's weird. You can see it right here. You can see what it's supposed to be. I'll refresh it again. Like singing the praises of Desmos here, and it's like letting me down. All right, well, the student preview is not doing its job right now, but that's all right. We'll get it squared away later. It's all there, but it's basically going to say what it says here. Create 2 groups of bears. You'll use the graph and the bears on the graph in order to manipulate, and it basically it ends up being, instead of having like jelly beans on a table or gummy bears, we can call this the gummy bear activity. Instead of having those on a table for students to sort, you're just doing it digitally. All right. Now you may want to look at this if you click on it and say, all right, do I really need the beam? Right? Do I need the floor? Right? Do I need the supports or the balance? The only thing it seems like I really need is the initial bear stack. All right? So I can wipe out some of this stuff. The screen type toggle, I'll leave that on. I can get rid of the beam. I can get rid of the floor. I can get rid of the supports, the balance. All right. Bear labels, there's nothing wrong with having bear labels. This other stuff, I think I can just kind of leave that alone. All right. You do have to get into the preview before you can start playing around with it, though. All right. So, so now you have something that's more in tune with what you're trying to have the students do. All right. So that should be a good thing. All right. So, if worst case scenario happens, you just go back, like before you publish it, just go back and grab the original slide from the original version of this and just pop it back in, right? And you can copy and paste slides, so there's that part of it too. So, like it's very manageable. So when you get into this one, it's the same idea, except, well, actually, it's really the same idea. This is a solution of it. Actually, I don't need this one, but maybe I screwed up and deleted too much. Maybe I need the bears back. In which case I would just take this slide and bring it over to the other one, right? But I don't need it, so I'll delete that screen, all right? So for this one, we have this question, which is pretty solid. What do you notice? What do you wonder, right? But I think this is more of a conclusion slide. So I'm just going to grab this and bring it on down to the end of the line and edit it later, right? Here we have 5 bears, all right? So I'm just going to do the same thing. Control C, grab this bad boy, or Command C if you're on a Mac. And then maybe I want to do 2 groups of bears. How many bears are there in each group? Maybe it's like kind of a trick question. You want to have, like they're not going to be able to have half of a bear. So one group's going to have 2 and the other group's going to have 3. Maybe some students have one group that has 1 bear in it and the other group has 4. Maybe another group has, another student has no bears in one group and 5 bears in another group. So you're living in the realm of open-endedness. These are all supposed to be conversation starters, all right? So then I go into the graph and I'd say, all right, screen type, and there's nothing wrong with looking at it and saying, I don't know what that is, so let me just leave that be. That's fine too. Screen type toggle, that has to do with like what kind of display you're going to use, all right, and whether or not you want to give the students the ability to manipulate that. All right, so we leave that alone. The beam I don't need, the floor I don't need, the supports I don't need. And the same thing with the balance, right? But the initial bear stack, I need that, and the bear labels and all that stuff, right? So I just hang on to that. That line, that's up to you. I mean, if you want to try to get rid of that, that's okay. But you can also leave it there. It doesn't seem to really be doing anything. This guy over here, like if you scroll along this, it seems to impact the placement of something that I've already deleted. So wipe that out because it doesn't seem like you need it, right? But again, just bring it back if you think maybe that's a mistake, right? So we did 5 bears, right? This one, yeah, it doesn't feel like it's overly relevant, so I can get rid of that because it's more like balancing, right? We're calling this an optional challenge. I don't know that I want it to be an optional challenge. I think I want it to be maybe, well, it's 4 bears, so let me do 4 bears. We'll change the title. All right, it's already set up to have the 4 bears. So I'm just going to grab this, bring it in. Tweak my graph. Again, if I overshoot it, I'll just undo, right? They have a little undo tab there anyway. You're like, all right, yeah, let's get rid of that. Don't need that. Don't need the balance. I need the initial bear stack. Not really, whatever this is, it's function related stuff. I don't need any of that, right? This other stuff, I'd want to see the activity in action before I decide on whether or not I need that. So that's 4 bears. Well, I'd look at this and say, well, I don't want to confuse the students. 4 comes before 5. This is more of an introductory thing, so let me just swap that. This is 8 bears. So let's do that. I'm still going to do create 2 groups of bears. So it says up here that it's 8 bears, so I'm pretty comfortable and confident with that. Get rid of this. You see, I'm just tweaking as I go. Don't need the balance. If there's other function-related stuff, we don't need it. So let's get rid of it. And then the last one is the free play. So again, create the 2 groups of bears. They call it free play. I say 10 bears. All right. So then the beam, again, same deal. Get rid of all this stuff that we don't need. Oop, something disappeared. And that's the thing. I just hit undo because it's like, okay, when I went to delete this, it took away other stuff. So let's be a little bit more careful. Yeah, it's wiping out the whole thing. So I look at it and say, well, maybe I want to live with that little triangle being there. You know, that's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with telling the students until you figure out why it's there or how to get rid of it without getting rid of the stuff that you want. You could say, you know what, ignore that, you know. And then you get to the last one, the notice and wonder. I don't need the diagram. So we can get rid of this. And we can just ask an open-ended question that the students would have to answer, right? What do you notice? What do you wonder? Related to what? So thinking about sorting bears, or sorting objects really, because it's not just bears, right? Into groups. What do you notice? What do you wonder? Right? And let them come back with it. Right? And so I can save that if I want, but then I look back and I say, oh, wait a minute. I didn't include an answer place for them to put, you know, a place for them to put their answers for the second, third, fourth, and fifth slide. So I'm just going to run back into each one of those. I'll pop in a text input. You see it just pops it right at the bottom, very quick. Text input, and text input. All right. And then once I do that, I can do a preview if I want. All right. And you can see here, well, the dots are moving, but the bears aren't moving. All right. So then maybe let's take a look at some of the other ones. Did I lose my bears along the way? Maybe. So that's telling me that I probably want to kind of move some things around, maybe it makes some adjustments. But it's also something else. Okay. I wasn't able to move bears. I wanted it to be bears. I wasn't able to move bears, but I am able to move dots. All right. So I can hit reset and maybe try it again. I could also look at this this warning sign. Sometimes that brings up something, but just something to keep in mind. Maybe you move away from the idea of bears and you say, okay, well, maybe it's dots, 8 dots instead, right? Just use what the technology allows you to use. You know, if you can't figure out why the bears aren't moving, then move away from the bears. You'd have to change a little background there. You don't want the kids to get their hopes up, but it's totally doable, right? Then once you publish it, refresh it, try the student preview. I know that that's kind of an issue, right? So it seems like we're losing the bears, right? But that's all right. You still get the idea. And again, this is still happening, but and that is what it is. But here we're keeping the bears, but we're losing. Well, eventually we lose the bears, but we're able to keep the dots, right? So it's still a functional activity. It's just you can either troubleshoot or you can kind of make it work the way it does, right? So you could even put a little preamble where you say each dot represents a bear, because you got the picture of the bears to start with. So why not, make that part of it? This stuff is still showing up, but that's all right. I'll show you how that looks in a minute. So we got our 8 bears. And it isn't until I use up all the dots that the bears go away. So that's okay. I can make this work. You just go back and tweak it. This is the annoying one where that little triangle is still there. So, you may want to consider tossing this slide. Like if you can't figure out why that triangle won't go away, then maybe you say, all right, forget it. I can do without 10 bears or 10 dots, right? So you get your groups, and then when you put it in your answers, then it's like I got 4 dots in one group or 4 bears in one group and 6 bears in another. You can have fun with it. Then I noticed that. I wonder if then you have all that stuff. So that's all accounted for. Now it's a question of changing the title, maybe changing an illustration or something along those lines, which you could have some fun with. But again, my changes didn't come through on the student preview. So what I would do is I would create a single session code, get the student link, and then go into the activity as a student and then see what's happening here, right? So it still seems to be the issue. I've experienced with Desmos that oftentimes, let me bring that back. Oftentimes what happens is that there's a time component, right? So you publish it and then, sorry, you publish it and then it takes a little time to update, on their servers, right? But that the stuff that you want is all in here. So it's just a matter of just waiting and being patient about it, right? That's a simple activity, but like I said, like the graph part didn't work out beautifully. So you could either change the foundation of it and say, okay, each dot represents a bear, give a little background, little title page, or what you can do, you've published it, all right? So I'll save this draft. You publish it, get your link, put it in the discussion board. The idea is that when you put it into the discussion board, which I will do right now, it gives your classmates an opportunity to make suggestions, right? So that's going to be my contribution to topic 3, all right? So this is, I'll just call it my Desmos. Right, so you can look at mine, and then as you work your way through it, or as you just like investigate it, you can say, you know what? If you try doing this, it'll work. Maybe you can fix that. Oh, I had the same problem. Let's ask the teacher if he's got any suggestions. A lot of different possibilities. Right, so it takes some doing, but the first step, I think, is coming up with a good idea, and then from there, you can kind of have some fun with it. Something else to consider, I showed you a way of creating a Desmos from somebody else's Desmos. You could also do it from scratch, right? Creating a Desmos from scratch it's not really challenging, right? It's just a question of how bare bones you want it to be, right? There is this function for Desmos labs. You can get into that. You could also create classes and stuff like that. But if you go into custom, you select new activity, call it something, whatever you want. Right? So maybe I say counting here. Counting. I'll call it counting numbers to keep it simple. Create new activity. Now you have a fresh canvas to work off of. So Maybe you want to put in an image. You know, you got a picture. And so thinking about it in terms of trying to make the transition from the hands-on way of doing things to the technological, maybe instead of actually having marbles on a desk, maybe you have a picture of a set of marbles on a desk, right? And then the follow-up question could be, you put in a note, how many marbles are on the desk, with a text input that calls for the answer, right? And give it a title. It could be that simple, right? So I showed you a little bit more. Oh, the first word that comes to mind is convoluted, but it's supposed to be like the, you know, like if you really wanted to go crazy with it, but you could also keep it very simple too, right? So I leave it up to you how you want to go about doing it. But at this point, my recommendation is just play around with the different attributes in the Desmos activity generator, right? All starts with making an account, so make sure you do that. Otherwise, you're kind of, you're doing a whole lot for not much of a payoff, right? So let me stop that recording.